Welcome to the We Build Academy podcast. If you are thinking about building your dream home, you have come to the right place. We try to demystify the home building process to help you to build your dream home. Now introducing your host, Ryan Watt.
Hi, welcome to We Build Academy. This week we're going to be talking to Allan Corfield. He's an architect that has built up a practice that has specialised in low energy homes that are also high quality. So in this week's episode, we're going to be talking about custom build and self build and why you might want to consider custom build. And also we talk about why Allan uses a degree of prefabrication in most of his designs. So if this might be of interest to you, let's get started.
Okay, well, my name's Allan Corfield. I'm a chartered architect and I run AC Architects. We're based in Scotland, but we work throughout the UK. We've got a team of 12 architects, designers, technicians, Passivhaus certifiers, who effectively just help self-builders realise their dream and build their dream home, as I say, throughout the UK. So we've got projects from Inverness to Penzance at the moment. The majority of the stuff is focused around low energy, fabric first approach. I also work for Home Building and Renovating magazine. I write articles for them and I am one of their self-build experts. So I speak at all the home building and renovating shows throughout the UK. We've grown since 2009 from just me at being made redundant to setting up a business to where we are now with 12 staff and looking for more staff. It's a growing, we work in the self-build industry and the developing custom build industry and developing custom build sites in hand with build store and custom build homes.
Could you just quickly explain the difference what the difference between a self build and a custom build? Because I don't know if someone's just starting out, they probably haven't heard of it.
Okay, so self build, my sort of take on self build, it's quite a wide encompassing term, but self builders to me are clients who want to have a bit more control of the design process, a bit more input in designing their own home. Some will actually get on the trades and build. The rest, the majority in the UK will just manage. So they'll self-manage, they'll appoint individual trades and help manage it and reduce costs that way. So that's one way of bringing effectively one plot and delivering one house. Custom build is a new strategy that's been around for the last couple of years, but it's starting to get a lot more industry recognition through Graven Hill. And the fact that the new housing white paper includes custom build as a strategy for delivering housing in the UK. So effectively, it's really for sites of more than between five houses upwards. So developers can bring serviced plots to market that then self builders can come in and buy a serviced plot with all of the road infrastructure. All of the services already built in. So it's a really good way of delivering not mass-produced housing, but mass-produced self-builds.
Mass-produced plot of lands, is that?
Plot, exactly. So serviced plots, they will have gone through outline planning permission, so they'll have that in place. There'll be a design code for the development and a plot passport that says everything that you can do on that house. The planning process is simplified. And it's just a really good way of bringing better quality homes. And the main problem that we find, or the main stumbling block for our clients, is getting a plot. So if we can actually then get groups of developers or local councils, authorities, bringing sites of 10 houses up to 5,000 houses, it's really going to take over and become a great way of trying to tackle the housing crisis that we have.
Yeah, I think I've seen a couple around in the Bristol area, and I think one thing that the planners are very keen on is making sure that you're not constantly living on a building site, and I think it is very good sort of time frame restrictions. So if you do decide to go down that route, your next door neighbour has to build by a certain period of time as well. So it can't be. I think that's what people are a little bit hesitant at first.
It's always the problem, but I think you'll always have that in the mass-produced persimmon developments and all these things. But you're right, it's a lot more well thought out. There's guidance in place to make it easier, and as you say, there are time limits. So it's really interesting, really exciting for self-build and for housing in the UK.
Okay, sorry. I think I cut you off on your sort of introduction because we went off on a little bit of a tangent. So in terms of your sort of practice and sort of how did you get into sort of architecture from the start, really?
I always, since I think the story goes, and an 8-year-old boy standing in York Minster with my mum and dad, wondering how this was built and who designed it. And my mum and dad love saying that that's where it came from. From that point on, I always wanted to be an architect. Studied at Robert Gordon University in Aberdeen. Everything was going fine up to 2009, and was made redundant from a big practice, and there wasn't a job for an architect in Europe for 3 years advertised in any of the websites. So set up my business then, and loved residential one-off homes, and saw a sort of niche in the market that they was really working on or specialising in sort of one-off low-energy homes for the growing self-build market, and we've developed a really strong business around that.
Okay, that's great. Before we were talking off air, what we were talking about is that you do a lot of high-end homes that are very eco orientated, but you don't tend to try and get them registered with Passivhaus. With a lot of guests we've talked to, is that it's becoming their sort of norm go-to. But in terms of how do you sort of advise your clients on the sort of the process, and talk a little bit more about the sort of pros and cons really about it?
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to come from the client. Actually, what are their aspirations? What do they want a comfortable home with low energy bills, or do they really want to strive for passive or zero carbon, which are the sort of two main go-to types of housing for low energy? A lot comes down to what they want. If some people have a specific requirement that they really want to have a passive house, and they want to have a certified passive house, but that's a very small number. And if they want to do that, then we'll go with that. But the majority of the work that we do is of varying budgets, from £150,000 starter homes to £2, £3, £4 million self builds, but they all have something in common, that they don't want to be spending a fortune on energy bills, and they want to be comfortable. So if it's more about low energy bills and being comfortable, then we'll use the fabric first approach, which we do focus in on most of our design. So we'll worry about the forever bit. We'll make sure the fabric of the building is well insulated, airtight, usually factory made. We'll take into account the solar gains on the site, and we'll try and limit down the cold bridges in the design. So we'll make sure that all the construction methods, all the details are right, and then also what happens on site is built correctly. And that's a really good way that you're not focused. If you're going for a certified passive house, you're in a certain route. You have to go for certain products. You have to have you have higher increased fees to get it certified and go through the design process. Fabric first is more about just good quality design and actually following it through on site. So that there's not that big increase in construction cost and design fees. And then the other route is if people are wanting to go through Passive House, that will probably be a bit controversial with the complete Passive House guys, but we do a lot that we take it through the PHPP software, the Passive House planning software, and get the calculation done, but the majority of them won't then go and get it certified, because unfortunately the UK, in my opinion, there's not a massive increase or betterment from getting that certificate. The government really need to look at how they promote that, or give an offset maybe on council tax bills. That would be a really good way of promoting and making it they're a better reason to go for the full certification. So I know that there's a bit of controversy in that. It's a lot of, if you are a Passivhaus certifier and designer, that's you want to get it certified all the time, and I completely understand that. But a lot of the clients that just want low energy and a comfortable home, and that's the thing that a lot of people forget about Passivhaus principle. It's a comfort standard as well. It's a really good way of getting a nice, comfortable home.
Yeah, I think in my mind, Passivhaus is a level of quality, a comfort level, and then lastly, it's as a result, you have a lower energy bills. It's not you can design a house to be a lot more carbon neutral than a passive house if you were going to spend the same amount of money if you reinvested it into renewables and other aspects rather than just but yeah, I think that's a different sort of take on it, and I think just make sure people are aware there are other options that you don't have to go through it.
The code for sustainable homes that was taken away was pushing us towards a certain level. We are the 2050, the new guidance for 2050 ready, which the Energy Saving Trust are pushing for. You're going to have to get to nearly zero carbon. So there's only a certain couple of ways that you can actually get to that for the performance standards that will need to offset carbon. So that's really interesting what the 2050 ready policy will push.
Have you got much experience in prefab homes at all? Yeah.
I mean, we do a lot of, because of the way of trying to, because the majority of our stuff is around fabric first principles, where we're trying to limit air cold bridging and air tightness. So we do a lot of SIPS builds, so structurally insulated panels. We do CLT and high-end timber frames. So they all have large prefabricated elements to it. And I'm a big advocate for if something can be built under factory tolerances and factory conditions, if the workers are in a nice warm factory as opposed to building on a building site, they'll always be building more accurately and with the right tools and the right things.
I think prefabrication gets a sort of sometimes a little bit of a bad rep, being quite expensive and stuff like that. But I always think that we're about the only industry that still doesn't build in factories as a mass produced sort of way of doing it, and because of quality. There's a reason why you don't build your car on your front garden, because you get better quality and better economics.
I think a lot of it, where we are in construction, is because of the historic trades that we've had and the skill sets, and we've kept along with that. And there is a change or a shift from brick and block to even the more traditionalists that are now starting to look at whether it's a timber frame or a SIPS kit or an ICF solution, that it's only going to go one way, but it's just taken a long time. But I mean, what you mentioned, the cost bit, and it will be, if you take like for like quotes, even if you take a timber frame quote to a SIPS quote, there's a lot more in a SIPS quote. There's a lot more fabrication. There's a lot more stuff that goes into it. So if you take even those two as a like for like quote, the SIPS kit will be more expensive than the timber frame. And obviously the timber frame will be more expensive than the brick and block. So, but you've got to look at it. To get it efficiently, you've got to look at the whole process. So this using SIPS or CLT as an example, they will be more expensive, but the kit will be erected on site in 10 days. So, and your windows and doors are ordered from factory drawings, so they come in day 10 and are fitted. So you're wind and watertight, maybe say 2-3 weeks for a foundation, 10 days for the kit to go up, and 2 or 3 for the windows and doors. You're wind and watertight maybe 4 to 8 weeks quicker than you would be even with a timber frame, let alone a brick and block. So when you take into account the additional costs for the additional site insurance costs, the preliminary stuff, all the things that you need on site for site welfare, those costs start to be more effective and level out when you look at everything in hand or in line, really.
Is there any advantages in terms of going prefab, in terms of getting with your funding and putting deposits down or anything like that? Because obviously it's a big big chunk of you're investing in a big chunk of work, and it's, as you say, it's very, very tight. Is there, sometimes that could be an advantage rather than for your cost flow analysis, not your cash flow analysis, really.
Well, I mean, you've hit it. That's bang on. Cash flow is king with a business and with a self build or any building project. So, there's positives and negatives to it. So. The negative is that if you're going for a prefab, if you're going to do that route that I just suggested, the prefabricated with the windows and doors coming very quickly, there's a lot of money up front. And it's always that first bit that people, if they're on an arrears mortgage, which the majority of self-build mortgages are, you've got the cost of your foundations, probably 100% of your kit, and maybe 50% of your windows and doors, or 100% of the windows and doors before you're at that next milestone. Which is wind and watertight. Conversely, you get to that point 8 weeks quicker than you would traditionally. So, and the milestones for mortgages, once the groundworks are in, there's a perception that I've put my foundations in, my site has now gone up by £60,000 in value. It doesn't work like that, unfortunately. No. You could spend £20,000 on the foundations and it not have added actually any value to the plot, which is what your value will look at. But as soon as you get up to ridge level and wind and watertight, that's a massive tick for your funders. It's insurable, and they'll give a big release. So you just have to be careful on the funding route and the build route. They have to know that, and that's one of my things about really top tips for self builders is cash flow and planning that out, and it does relate right the way back to design and the build route.
Is there really are any? I don't know. You probably might not get into that much depth, but do any lenders sort of reward you at all for going the factory quality? Because there's obviously less variables and less things. They might not have cottoned onto that just yet, but I don't know if I was just trying to tease out any other sort of advantages of going factory built.
So I mean, they will, for a lending point of view and an insurance point of view. They're all considered as modern methods of construction, so there's no issue anymore with it not getting insured, or it's not traditional, therefore there's an issue. They will. Most of the lenders in the self-build market are interested in the viability of it and your cash flow. So actually, by saying I can get it to wind and watertight quicker, that will be looked upon more favourably in your application. But one of the Ecology Building Society who are one of the big lenders in the self-build market, they will give you a reduction dependent on the energy performance. Okay. So if you are doing an A-rated house, you'll get something like a 1% or 0.75% off your interest rate.
Which is be quite a large saving. So, pretty much pay for it.
Exactly. So that's something to think about. But there's not I don't think there's a direct relationship being that, but it will get you there quicker, and therefore you'll get funds released quicker, which is key for the self builder. So, and there is an accelerator mortgage that a lot of people don't really know about that will give you all of the money. It's advance payments, which is available, and I think it's 95. Don't quote me on it, but it's about 95% of the borrowing now. In that route, so it does actually make it a lot more viable route for people that might not consider self-build or building their own home. But there's a lot of really good specialist products out there for self-builders.
So combine the sort of community building plots as we were talking beforehand with on top of kits that must reduce the risk of self-build almost, I wouldn't say not to nothing, but it's dramatic, a factor, not a decent factor to go down that sort of route. And I think a lot of people are a bit scared when they start with all this terminology and stuff like that.
And they should be. It is a complete challenge, but it's absolutely worth it. I mean, there's between 12 and 15,000 people doing it a year now, self-build wise. So, but the custom build route, I didn't mention it at the start, but it's de-risking it as much as possible, because on a say a 10 house site, there'll be 5 mortgage lenders will already be available on that. Okay. There'll be 3 or 4 kit companies will be advised already. There'll be an architectural practice. There'll be builders all lined up that are pre-approved and they meet all the right things for the development. So as far as de-risking self-build, custom build is it's ticking a lot of the boxes that do put people off. So
yeah, I think there is I don't know the figures you said about 15,000 people self-build get done a year, but I think the figures of who wants to self-build is massive. And I think if we can, when I was young, in South Africa, when we were young, when I was born, apparently it was common for people just to get a plot of land and build on it, and that was the common thing to do. Yeah. And I mean, as you said earlier about it is a housing crisis, and if we can any sort of thing that helps it would be quite good.
I mean, I think there's about 35,000 people that have signed up for the right to build register with with NACSPA, so that you have a right in England and Wales to sign up with your local authority for them to give you a plot of land. So that's really, really helpful. So there is a huge, growing demand for people that want to do this. So
yeah, and I think and I can only see it being an advantage for doing it. I think with those lists, I think I did see an article the other day that it's best just double check that your name is still on the list. I think some councils have forgotten or lost their list.
Some of the authorities are doing a little bit better than others, but they have to. So you do have the right to say, please provide the list and make sure you're on it. So I do know that there are some big changes happening with the register and the list. So over the next month.
Oh, that's cool.
So.
Okay. I think in terms of time, I think we're pretty much there in terms of moving on to the next sort of section. So in terms of with your sort of clients and self-builders, what would be your main sort of roadblock that you see people hitting into, and what would be the main sort of way they can avoid it early on in the process? Generally?
I think so. The main thing that start again, put my brain back on. The main thing that our clients have a stop point is finding the plot of land. That's the rest of it is just, if you're with the right practice and you've thought about it and you know why you're wanting to do it, the what and the how are not that difficult. It's getting a piece of land. So we advise our clients to do loads of different things. So there's a couple of websites out there, Plot Search and Plot Finder, that they can go on and find sort of pre-set up plots that have got outline or full planning permission. Or we advise clients to make a note of interest with all of the local areas. So further point on that, or the starting point, you really need to work out where you want to live. We get all the time, I want to build a house. As well, where do you want to live? Do you need to be an hour from work, or do you need to do this? So really think where you want to live. Look on Plot Finder, Plot Search to see what plots are available. Speak to the local estate agents in that area and just tell them what it is you're looking for. So they're the sort of conventional ways. But
would they approach you early on to put together sort of a recommendation based on what they've discussed, what sort of land that they? I mean, obviously they've got to think about the whole budget. So if they want to have a 4-bedroom house that's going to cost roughly that, it's going to be roughly this size, and you need a land roughly this big to accommodate your say for instance if they had horses or something like that, or dogs or something, and this is the whole. And do you end up advising them on that early on?
We get lots of different inquiries at different stages of the journey, and what we do find is the majority of people that are doing the self-build route are more educated, and they've spent more time, not more educated in a professional way, but more educated in self-build. So they actually how to build. They've done a lot of research into what has to happen, and generally they know. Majority of them will know I want a 250 square meter house, and I want it to be half an acre, or they know that sort of information. If not, we can guide them. We can take a brief from them, work out what it is they need, and then from that give them a sort of rough area that they need to, or size of plot that they need to be looking for. So yeah, we offer a free site review service. So if somebody sends us a link, I'm interested in this, Alan, we can do a planning check on it and just make sure it meets their requirements and just advise of any issues. But the majority of people have usually spent months already looking online every night when they get home from work till 2:00 in the morning, to looking at plots and all the other stuff. But yeah, so we can help with that. But the more interesting and ways to find the right site. I mean, we've got clients they'll spend Saturday, Sunday going around all the villages, knocking on doors, going meeting farmers, asking if they've got bits of land, adverts in papers. So you can take an advert out in the local Gazette or whatever it's going to be for £100, putting in, I want a plot for my house. Have you got a garden? Have you got a bungalow that can be demolished? Or a leaflet drops is one that we've actually found really useful. So there'll be a local printing company that you'll be able to get 2,000 A5 prints done for 20-30 quid.
Or learn a little bit about Facebook ads.
Exactly, Facebook's the modern one of that. But the printer will also have a company that does the annoying leaflets that come through your door. But they'll be amazed you would get 2,000 leaflets printed and delivered for 50 quid. I mean, that's a really good way of finding sites that aren't on the market, or people haven't even thought about selling a bit of land at the bottom of their garden, or thinking I've got a bungalow that's that needs renovated, that could be demolished and a new build put on it. So they're the sort of, that's if you want to try and get something that's not got a high markup on it already because it's on a plot finder or with an estate agent. That's the sort of way to go about it.
Do you find anyone goes down any sort of like a joint venture route or anything like that? Some people buy them on options, or is that generally you tend to advise them to get a bit more financial advice? From we
usually we direct them to a couple of companies that will be able to help on that, because it becomes a development. So we have had group self builds where people have tried to get 4 or 5 together, but it just, when you've got 4 or 5 people with different options, ideas, and usually different finance backgrounds, it becomes tricky, and you just have to accept that it's going to take a long time. But I think this is where custom build is going to come into its own. It's for those groups of people that don't want to live in the middle of nowhere, but they don't want to live on a new housing estate. They want to have more control and bigger plot sizes and all that sort of stuff. So,
having a garden
and not being able to touch the house next door to you from your garden. But no, I think that's actually finding the bit of land and the right bit of land for you is the biggest barrier. From that point on, it's we've done it 265 times now, so we know what we're doing, and as I say, there's 10 to 15,000 people a year doing it. So it's
I think the number one thing that people said to me when they think about self builders, I can't find any land, and then you ask them, have you actually looked for it? No. It's not going to land on your lap.
Well, that's the whole joy of self builders, that you're more involved and you're doing it at a different price point, but that doesn't happen without hard work. So
no. Yeah, I think the more elbow grease you put in, the cheaper you're going to get your land. I think you eventually get it. I mean, it is hard, but it's not impossible. I think, as you say, there's 15,000 people doing it.
And a lot we've got a lot of clients that are, we've got a couple in Dubai and Qatar, Oman, that are returning back to the UK, and we're doing everything remotely, but they've found the site remotely. So you can do a lot when you get home from work or your lunch hour and the weekends. So it's good fun going out and looking at different villages and places that you want to live. But you need to know where you want to be first. That's a big thing. Narrow it down.
And there are specialists, like anything. There are specialists out there who will look for you on your behalf. But like everything, you have to pay for it. But it's depending what you want to do for it.
Exactly.
So if we can get to the last sort of your top tip for self builders, what would that really be? I mean, try and keep it to around about 2 or 3 sentences.
Research and knowledge. you're going to do something you've never done before, be as well educated, as well informed as you possibly can be. So listening to this podcast is a good start. Going to all the different shows that are out there, speaking to experts. But for you to get this on at a cheaper budget and get what you want, you have to give something. And being as well educated and self-build, you don't have to know how to build something, but you need to be as educated as you can. And also don't underestimate the time that you can put to this. So if you can't deliver, or if you can't give all of your nights away for 4 or 5 months, get a project manager. So it's I think being well researched, well educated and self-built, but also knowing your limits.
Excellent. Thanks. It's in terms of, in your mind, is there I mean, obviously it's depending how much money you want to spend on it, but is there a bare minimum of effort? I mean, like if you build a kit car, they normally say you need to allow, say, 3,000 hours of time to do it. And I think probably in my mind, it's completely depending on the site and everything else like that. But I think it's depending on your financial background or how much you want to do it. It's not an easy thing, but it's, as you say, if you get the knowledge, what I find is there are a lot of passionate people in this sort of niche, and don't be afraid to speak to other self-builders who's gone through the process. They'd love to sort of give you sort of
they all love talking about their homes and showing you. That's the one thing everybody's so proud of. That it's a massive achievement. So there's lots of forums out there and get involved. And but the time wise, if you're trying to build for £1,000 a square meter, you're on site, you're labouring, you're moving stuff, you're doing unskilled elements. If you're where the majority of our clients are, sort of that project managed £1,200 to £1,400 a square meter target range, you need to be giving up 2 or 3 hours a night and your weekends. That's you're making sure that everything's ready for the next day, that everybody's set up. You're ordering materials, you're doing some shopping for the nice stuff. And you're just managing. That's the on-site bit of it. The design stage is just what you'll be doing with your normal architect. Or your normal designer. You just go through all of the stages. So there's not a huge amount more. You will end up spending all of your nights looking at designs and Pinterest and all these different things. But it will take over. It will take over your life. But it's massively worth it. So, in terms of enjoyment and sweat equity that you'll put into it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like doing a what's it called? Like kind of distance learning degree. You it's only for 3. So it's only working in your nights and the weekends. It's only for 3 years. Well, it's how long you ever want to build your house, but try and keep limit as low. But it's only for a small period of time, and the end result will last for many more years than the blood, sweat, and tears. But no, well, thanks, Alan, for coming on. Very much appreciated. If someone wants to try and get hold of you, what would be the best way to get in contact with you?
The easiest thing is. Our website is acarchitects.biz, and you'll find us on every single social media platform, and we are all over everything. So either just type in AC Architects or Allan Corfield Architects. And if you want to get, as I said, I do work with Home Building and Renovating magazine, and I've got the talks are all on our website. So if you go on to acarchitects.biz /We Build Academy, and you'll be able to get lots of free resources.
Excellent. All right, thank you very much. I hope you have a great. I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you've got any questions, please feel free to get in contact with me. If you have not yet ordered your We Build Academy starter pack, please click on the link below. We put together a self-build starter pack, and we'll also keep you up to date with all the comings and goings of We Build Academy. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for listening to the We Build Academy podcast. Don't forget to click subscribe and check out our website, webuildacademy.com, for more great tools and information to help you build your dream home.